I come from a family of missionaries, and to be honest, I really don't like using the word missionary anymore because it's kind of fallen out of vogue in our society. My great-grandpa was a missionary in China. My great-grandpa was a missionary in Japan. I have a great aunt that was a missionary in Tanzania. I have family members that have been kind of circuit preachers around the United States. And when I tell people that I am from a family of missionaries, people start to question, well, is that still something that happens today? Is that something that we can share with others? Because missionary, the term mission or missionary has been a tricky term to use and to share this history of my family. So today, my goal is to share a little bit about missionaries, and I'm going to attempt to turn this word into something that has been reclaimed for the church, that we can be proud of, and maybe even at the end of this message, you might consider yourself a missionary. So I know that's a tall task. I have a lot of work ahead of me, but that's my plan for this message today. So let's jump right in. Missionary. So the term missionary, you can see the root word comes from mission. And what is a mission? A mission is a purpose, or it's a value. It's a way that we are. It's an identifier. What is our mission? So I like to create interactive sermons, and Ben Millard is going to help me out. He's going to just go around if there's anyone that has an idea to share. And this first question is for you, and it starts like this. I have just a little bit of a preview, so you can just sit for a second. If you were to be sent out into Richfield, and you were going to be there for 1 year, and you could do anything in that 1 year, but your goal was to go out into the community and have a mission, have a purpose, have a reason for existence, what would you do individually? If you were to leave and go out and work for 1 year in the Richfield community, what's something that you would see needs to be done? Something that you would want to have happen? Something that would be inspiring to you? Where would you go? What would you do? Now think about it for a moment. And if you have something that that's what I would do, just raise your hand and Ben will come to you, and then we'll share it together. Oh, Ingrid has something. Perfect. Thank you, Ingrid. Starting us off right.
It's your idea. She's shy.
Oh, that was perfect. She said it in her heart. I love people that...
I heard it.
It works. What would you do? Where would you want to go? What do you see as a need in our community? Something that is inspiring to you, something that you're passionate about, something that you might want to have happen in the next year in our community. What's something that you would want to have happen? Any ideas or things? We have two here.
I'm passionate about kindness and letting people know that they're not alone and that there are kind people out there in the world.
Cool.
I'd like to connect older people who are staying inside mostly with younger people who can come and visit them.
Really nice. Any other ideas or things that you would do out and you see a need as you're driving around, you think, oh, that's a need that I know exists, and I would want to help out with that?
I like the idea of, I've heard about this where neighborhoods put tables down the middle of their street and they all come together and share a meal, and to try to encourage neighborhoods to do that, kind of like we do on National Night Out, but have it be a meal of community.
That's so great. A need. So think about it. This is an open question, and you don't have to, the conversation doesn't have to end here. Thank you, Ben. I'll take the microphone. Wonderful job. So, great ideas out into the community of Richfield. There are needs that need to be met. And notice that it wasn't said is that we would stay here in this space and let people come to us. I mean, that's a big difference of a church which God doesn't need worshipers. God needs people to go out and to meet the needs of the community. God needs missionaries that go out on a mission to help the community in some way or another. So notice that distinction is that God is sending us out to do something today. Now the second thing I want to do is that's all individual, but we are a church. We are a community. If you were to use the same question instead of your own individual interests, what do you think we should do as a church out in the community? What are the needs that the church could help with? What are things that we as an organization of Woodlake Lutheran Church could fill a need in the community? And you're going to do this together because we can't solve big problems by ourselves. So if you could find a group of 3 people, introduce yourself to them, and share what's something that you want to see our church moving out from this space doing in Richfield to meet a need that is there or present in our community. And we're going to take 2 minutes. And the same exercise as we'll just hear if someone wants to share or ideas were shared, then we'll share some of those ideas. But take the next 2 minutes to share something that you see the church could do. You're going to have to get up for this, find a group of 3 people.
You can join us, Ben.
I'm hearing lots of good conversations, but just finish that thought and then we're going to come together. Is there anyone that wants to share from your community, your group, what's something that came up? What is the mission of the church, of Woodlake Lutheran Church, that you would want to see have happen? Any ideas that people thought, oh, we got to share that, that'd be great?
Our group was talking about a gathering place for people with like ideas to share and feel like they were part of a community. And then we thought, why not expand that and have it be a gathering place for people with opposite ideas to come together over a meal and hear about each other.
That's really great. God at work. Anyone else? Any other things that were bubbling up or ideas people talked about?
We talked about the same thing, like a community dinner where people can come out and enjoy a meal with people, because sometimes people do stay in their homes and don't really get out and enjoy the community and get to know people.
Any other things people are wanting to share? Hold on to that idea of community, being sent out to meet a need in the community. That is very important for us as a church. And we exist for a reason, and it's not just for our individual gratification or our individual needs, but it's for a particular mission. And today, Jesus, in our gospel reading from John, shares a mission statement of sorts. And John says this in verse 21, chapter 21, verse 15. Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these? He said to him, yes, Lord, you know that I love you. And in other words, Jesus said to him, if that's true, Simon Peter, then if you really love me, if you claim to have a deep faith in me, if you say that you are a follower of me, then feed my lambs. Oh, snap. Then Simon Peter says, okay, I can do that. I can feed your people. Jesus asks him a second time, and we hear this in succession. Just in case Simon Peter wasn't listening the first time, and I love that Jesus asks again. We need reminders. We need to be asked. We need to be told. We need to be reminded, what is the mission of the church? What is Jesus' mission here in the world? Because we forget. We get off track. We get distracted. So Jesus is here and reminds us again in the next verse, verse 16. A second time Jesus said to him, Simon, son of John, do you love me? He said to him, yes, Lord, you know that I love you. And Jesus said to him, if that is true, then tend my sheep. Now, I find this all sounding really nice. I find this really easy to hear. Feed my sheep. Tend my sheep. But how are we doing? If we look at our church, how are people doing? If we look at our community, are people being fed? Are people hungry? Are people homeless? Are people needing things in our community that they don't have? Are people hurting? Look at our world. How are we doing as a church community to provide for what Jesus is telling us? Do you actually love me? Jesus says to us today. Then I command you to do these things. Feed my sheep. Tend my sheep. Watch over those people that are in need. Care for one another. And we look around and we see the world is really hurting. Every week we look around our community, across the globe, and we see people that are suffering, people that are hungry, people that are hurting, people that are angry, people that are really, really having a difficult time. So do you see the disconnect between what Jesus is telling us and what is actually happening in the world? Rather than worshipers, Jesus needs missionaries, people willing to go out into the community and to love God's people. One thing that was interesting to me about a family full of missionaries is that they came from all different professions. We had principals that started a school in China, nurses in Tanzania, doctors, doctors that were caring for patients. We had soldiers, cooks, musicians, and mechanics. God used all of these people in a way that they could have never expected. All they were willing to do is to say, I see a need out into the world, and I want to help solve that need. People are hungry. I love to cook, so I'm going to help. And God used that cook from my family, and they do amazing work and start sharing the love of God through food. Or I love the story of mechanics who go out and start helping people with needs that they have. Or dentists, or musicians, or you see this happen over and over again where people are using their skill sets, their professions, to love God's people. That's all that missionary work is. You have a mission. What are we centered around? Well, we're centered around loving God's people, caring for God's sheep, tending God's sheep. And then we go out and do that work. God used all people to accomplish this goal of tending God's sheep. And God needs that today in our community of Richfield. People are hurting, people are hungry, people are homeless. And God needs people to go out and to care for the world. Jesus said to Simon Peter a third time, Simon, son of John, do you love me? Now at this point, Peter's been asked twice, and it says he was hurt. Why would you ask me again? Why would you keep repeating this to me? I already told you that I loved you. I already told you that I follow you. I already told you that I'm a disciple. And Jesus asks him a third time, do you love me? And he said to him, Lord, you know everything. You know that I love you. Jesus said to him, feed my sheep. If the mission of God is to care for God's people, to forgive, to love, to feed, to clothe, to share God's grace, to share God's story that, yes, you are included in God's family. You have a place in God's world. God loves you. If that's the message that we're supposed to share out into the world, then that is what we need to be doing. That is what God is calling us to do. That is what God is shaping us to do, to go out on this mission, to showcase who we are as believers of God, Christ followers, Christians. One of my mentor pastors, John Hoganson, he was a pastor at St. Andrew in Matamida, and then he moved to Mount Olivet and then died of a tragic brain tumor just within the last 6 years. But he said, Micah, if you have a vision for the community or for worship or for a church, and it's just your vision, it is not big enough. Because God is bigger than just you. You need to include other people in your vision. You need to look beyond yourself, look beyond your own interests, and have a conversation with the church to say, what is our mission and how will we do that? The world needs big thinkers. The world needs big ideas. The world needs people to go out and to do what? To love God's people, care for God's people, tend God's sheep, walk with people. And ultimately, the world needs more people to share the love of God. Because too many times, we heard that opening from Bishop Eaton, too many times people feel that they are not valued, that they don't have a place in God's kingdom, that they just don't matter. And today, we as a church must live into God's calling to say, you are loved by God. Because there's too much hurt and anger and pain and suffering in the world. And we can start living into this message of God calling us into this mission. So the question is, today, are you going to worship? Hopefully. We love worship, but also, could you see being a missionary in your family? Walking with someone who is in need. Could you see being a missionary in the community? Seeing a need and entering into that need. Are people hungry? How can you feed them through a community meal? Are people angry? How can we bring people together to lower the temperature of anger and to actually have conversations of meaning with one another? What could you see yourself doing as a missionary? I know today we have people that have traveled the globe, in my family and in your families, doing incredible work by doing this, tending God's family around the world. In many professions, in many ways. And finally, I know we're going to maybe have a vet, where's Megan, to care for God's animals too. Because God needs people like you, Megan, to go out and to share God's love with all of God's creation. What a gift it is today. Thanks be to God. Amen.